All right, let's just say it. Angel Reese's back injury might be the most talked about mystery in the WNBA right now. And not for the reasons you'd hope. Because at this point, the injury isn't just a medical update. It's a full-blown storyline. One that has fans, analysts, and even a few players asking the same blunt question. Has Angel Reese quit on the Chicago Sky again? We've been here before. This isn't new territory for Reese. Last year, it was the wrist injury that kept her sidelined for huge stretches.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
The year before, she didn't even finish the inaugural season of Unrivaled, walking away before the big finale. And now in 2025, it's her back. But here's what's turning this from just an unfortunate run of injuries into a potential career-defining controversy. The details are practically non-existent. No official timeline. No clear diagnosis. No, she'll be back in 3 weeks. Just vague mentions of rehab and taking it day by day from the coaching staff and silence from Reese herself. When you're the centerpiece of a team, or at least supposed to be, that silence is deafening. The pattern that's hard to ignore. The Chicago Sky aren't exactly hiding the fact they're struggling. Depending on the week, they've either got the worst or second worst record in the league. The offense is sputtering. The defense has holes and morale. Let's just say it's not the kind of energy you see in playoff locker rooms. And somehow, in the middle of all this, their star is nowhere to be found. Fans have noticed. She missed the championship game in Unrivaled. She skipped major away games. And the one that really made people raise their eyebrows? Sitting out the high-profile matchup against Caitlin Clark's Indiana Fever. That wasn't just any game. That was the kind of event that draws national attention, puts players in the spotlight, and gives them a chance to steal the headlines. If you're competitive, you want that game. So why wasn't she there? Is this about the team's record? Here's the ugly theory making the rounds. Some believe Reese doesn't want the losses on her record, that she's pulling back from the Sky now so that when the season ends in disappointment, her name isn't as tied to it. And if that's true, if this is a calculated move to protect her personal brand, it's one of the most short-sighted plays you can make as a pro. Because here's the thing, the greats don't just show up when it's easy. They build their reputations in the bad years. They stick it out when the roster's thin, the shots aren't falling, and the fans are booing. Those are the seasons that show whether you're built for the long haul or just here for the highlights. Right now, Reese is leaning toward the wrong side of that equation. The production problem before the injury. And let's be honest, even before the injury, it's not like Reese was lighting up the stat sheet in ways that justified untouchable star treatment. Shooting 28% on layups? That's rough, especially for someone whose game is supposed to dominate in the paint. What made it worse is that this wasn't just a shooting slump. It was paired with games where her energy looked flat. No relentless rebounding runs. No back-to-back hustle plays that make coaches forget to miss shots. Just a lot of there but not really there performances. Then, right after the All-Star voting talk started heating up last season, she turned it on. The timing wasn't lost on anyone. Forcing a trade? Another theory gaining traction is that this might be Reese's way of forcing the Chicago Sky to make a move. If she's not playing, not practicing fully, and the team is losing, the pressure builds. Fans start questioning management. Management starts thinking about the PR damage. And before you know it, a trade starts looking like a clean way out. But here's the problem. That kind of strategy only works if other teams believe you'll show up for them. Right now, Reese's availability record is 3 seasons of inconsistency. That's not exactly the kind of resume that has GMs lining up with blockbuster offers. The perception game. This is where the damage could get permanent. Perception. In pro sports, your reputation follows you everywhere. If you're known as the player who grinds, plays hurt, and puts the team first, you'll have a job for as long as your legs can carry you. But if you're known as the player who bails when things get tough, that stigma is brutal to shake. Even if the injury is 100% real, the lack of transparency from Reese and the Sky is creating a narrative vacuum. And you know what happens when there's no clear story? People start writing their own. Right now, the story being written isn't flattering. The most important ability. There's an old saying in sports. The most important ability is availability. You could be the most gifted scorer, the most marketable personality, the player who sells the most jerseys. But if you're not on the floor, none of it matters. That's the standard Angel Reese is being measured against right now, and she's falling short. It's not about whether she's talented. It's about whether she's there when it counts. And for the third straight season, the answer seems to be no. Fans are losing patience. Look, Reese has her loyal supporters. She's charismatic. She's marketable. She's a name casual fans recognize. But even the most loyal fan base starts asking questions when the pattern doesn't change. Missing 1 season for injury? Understandable. 2 seasons? Unlucky. 3 seasons? That's a habit. Social media is already flooded with fans debating whether she's worth building around. And that's not the kind of conversation you want happening in year 3 of your pro career. What happens if this keeps going? If this absence stretches on without clear updates, a few things could happen. None of them good for Reese's career. Her trade value tanks. Why would another team give up assets for a player who might not show up? The skies start moving on mentally. Once a team starts building a game plan without you, getting back into the core rotation is harder than it looks. Sponsors cool off. Big brands love stars who are in the spotlight, not on the injury report. And perhaps most dangerously, fans stop caring. The worst thing that can happen to a player's career isn't booze, it's silence. The optics are getting worse by the week. Every game Reese misses without a clear explanation just adds to the speculation. And when that speculation is fueled by past seasons of disappearing acts, it turns into something bigger than just an injury. It becomes a conversation about character, leadership, and commitment. And once those questions start getting asked, it's not easy to change the answers. Bottom line, this could all be resolved with a simple, transparent update. A specific injury diagnosis. A recovery timeline. Visible support for the team from the sidelines. But without that, the narrative is spinning out of control. Right now, Angel Reese is at a crossroads. She can either step up, physically, publicly, and professionally, or she can watch her reputation take a hit that even the best PR campaign won't fix. Because 3 years of injury-related absences isn't just bad luck anymore. It's a pattern. And in pro sports, patterns become your legacy faster than you think. All right, let's dig even deeper into the Angel Reese situation. And this time, we're not rehashing what's already been said. We're going to pull the curtain back on the ripple effect her absence is having inside the Chicago sky, the locker room dynamics, and the way this is reshaping how other teams, and even players in the WNBA, see her. The locker room fallout. When your star player goes MIA, it doesn't just affect the scoreboard. It changes everything about a team's identity. Right now, the Chicago Sky locker room is a mix of frustration, confusion, and quiet resignation. You've got veterans who've been grinding for years, putting in the extra reps, playing through bumps and bruises, and they're looking around thinking, why am I killing myself if our supposed leader isn't even here? That's poison for team morale. Even worse, you've got younger players trying to make their mark in the league, and they're watching this unfold like it's some kind of blueprint. If you're not feeling it, just check out, and no one can force you back. That's the kind of mindset that erodes a team from the inside out. The trust gap between player and franchise. It's not just about showing up for games. It's about trust. Teams need to trust their stars to be the cornerstone, the player you can build around for years. Right now, if you're Sky Management, how much trust can you really put in Angel Reese long-term? If she tells you she'll be ready for the start of next season, are you betting your roster moves on that? Are you turning down trade offers because you believe she's fully committed? That trust gap is dangerous. Once a front office stops believing you're all in, they start planning for life without you, even before you're gone. The teammate perception problem. Let's be real, players talk. Not just within a team, but across the league. And in a league as tight-knit as the WNBA, reputations spread fast. When you've got Sophie Cunningham, Kelsey Mitchell, or even players from rival teams watching the Sky situation, they're not just seeing Angel Reese is hurt. They're seeing a star who isn't traveling with her team, who isn't courtside visibly supporting them, and who has a history of disappearing before season ends. That sticks. And when free agents are thinking about where they want to sign, they're factoring in whether they want to deal with that kind of teammate energy. The sponsorship angle no one's talking about. Angel Reese is a marketable name, no doubt. She's been a social media sensation. She has brand deals. She gets interviews on big platforms. But here's the thing. Brands don't just pay for talent. They pay for visibility and reliability. If you're a sponsor and your athlete is off the court for months with no firm return date, that hurts you. Every missed, nationally televised game is a lost advertising opportunity. Every time her name trends for controversy instead of performance, that's a headache for the marketing department. Some sponsors will ride it out, but others, they'll quietly step back. And when that happens, your market value drops, sometimes permanently. The fan disconnect. Here's where this really hits hard. Fans can forgive a losing season. They can forgive shooting slumps. What they can't forgive is feeling like a player doesn't care as much as they do. Right now, Sky fans are the ones still buying tickets, still showing up, still living and dying by the box score every night, and they don't see that same investment from REESE. That's a dangerous disconnect. Once fans turn on a player, it's hard to win them back. And in a league where the fan-player connection is so personal, that's career-threatening. The long-term career consequences. Here's the cold reality. If Angel Reese keeps building this reputation, she's going to find herself in the most dangerous spot in pro sports. Talented enough to play, but too much baggage for anyone to take the risk. Teams will start thinking, we can find production elsewhere without the drama. And once you're labeled as a player who brings off-court headaches, your phone stops ringing in free agency. It's happened to NBA players. It's happened in the NFL. The WNBA is no different. Why this year hurts more than the last two. The past 2 seasons, the league was still figuring out where Angel Reese fit in the hierarchy. This year, she came in with expectations. The Sky built around her, marketed her, and pushed her as a franchise cornerstone. That means the fallout from this absence is way bigger. It's not just she's hurt, it's unfortunate. It's our entire plan was built around her, and now we're scrambling. And when you put a franchise in scramble mode, you create lasting resentment. How this impacts future contracts. Let's talk numbers. If this pattern continues, Angel Reese isn't going to see the kind of long-term, big-money WNBA contracts she might have been headed toward. Instead, she'll get short-term, prove-it deals. 1-year contracts with team options. Incentive-based clauses that only pay if she's active for a certain percentage of games. That's the financial reality for players with availability concerns. The league protects itself, and it means Reese could be leaving millions on the table over the course of her career. The trade market reality. If Reese is trying to force a trade, here's the harsh truth. Her value right now is at rock bottom. Teams know the Sky are desperate, and they'll lowball offers because they see the risk. You're not getting a first-round pick and an all-star for her in this climate. You're getting a role player and a conditional pick, if that. That's not the kind of exit a star wants. The PR spiral. The longer this drags on without clarity, the more control Reese loses over her own narrative. Every day, she's absent without a concrete reason. The speculation grows. Every time a former player or analyst suggests she's not committed, that becomes the headline. Once the PR spiral starts, you're no longer the author of your own story. The media is. And clawing that back takes years of consistent play and drama-free seasons. What needs to happen next? If Reese wants to salvage this, it's not complicated. Go public with specifics. What's the injury? What's the timetable? What's the plan? Show visible support. Travel with the team. Be on the bench. Show fans you care. Commit to next season now. Make it clear you're in, regardless of the Sky's record. Without those steps, the noise around her will only get louder. The brutal truth is this. Angel Reese's talent isn't in question. Her commitment is. And in the WNBA, where every season is short, every game is magnified, and every star's reputation is under a microscope, that's the one thing you can't afford to have in doubt. If she doesn't change the narrative fast, she won't just be the story of this season. She'll be the cautionary tale players get warned about for the next decade. The Angel Reese situation isn't just about one player missing games. It's turning into a multi-layered story that touches on league politics, image management, rivalries, and the shifting power dynamics inside the WNBA. We've already covered the surface-level concerns. Now let's get into the undercurrents nobody's putting into words, but everyone's feeling. The Caitlin Clark shadow effect. Whether REESE wants to admit it or not, every single thing she does right now is being viewed through the lens of Caitlin Clark's rise. Clark is everywhere, on highlight reels, in national ads, packing arenas, and giving post-game interviews dripping with professionalism. Every time Caitlin plays through a hard foul, every time she shows up after a brutal loss, every time she delivers in crunch time, it's a silent indictment of REESE's absence. Fair or not, fans and analysts are making that side-by-side comparison. One is in the spotlight and producing, the other is on the sidelines with no timetable to return. That perception gap grows wider with every game. The rivalry that's losing steam. Remember when Angel Reese versus Caitlin Clark was being hyped as the future Magic versus Bird of the WNBA? The media had storylines locked and loaded. Two fiery competitors, clashing styles, built-in drama from college battles. But here's the problem. A rivalry only works if both sides show up consistently. If REESE is absent for long stretches, those matchups lose their juice. Networks won't push a storyline where one half is sitting in street clothes. That's not just bad for REESE, it's bad for the league. Rivalries are what sell casual fans on a sport. If this one fizzles, the WNBA loses one of its strongest marketing hooks. The Chicago Sky's PR nightmare. The Sky front office is stuck between a rock and a hard place. If they push REESE for answers, they risk alienating their star and looking like they don't care about player health. If they stay silent, they feed the rumor mill and let the perception of dysfunction grow. Right now, they're taking the second route, and it's costing them. Every vague, "she's still rehabbing" comment from the coaching staff feels like another drop of gasoline on the fire. In pro sports, controlling the message is everything. The Sky have lost control. In the absence of facts, the narrative is writing itself, and it's not flattering. How this impacts rookie perception. This might be one of the most overlooked angles. How new players entering the league view the professional standard. If you're a rookie coming in, hungry to make your mark, and you see a high-profile player miss huge chunks of multiple seasons with little public accountability, what does that say about the league's culture? The WNBA is still fighting for legitimacy in the broader sports landscape. It can't afford for the perception to be that its stars pick and choose when they feel like playing. The injury as leverage narrative. This is where things get tricky. In some sports, it's almost become a known tactic. A player unhappy with their situation uses an injury, real or exaggerated, as a way to quietly remove themselves until changes are made. Once that suspicion is out there, it's hard to shake. Even if REESE's back injury is 100% legitimate, the lack of transparency lets people assume the worst. And the more that narrative spreads, the less leverage she has in negotiations, whether that's for a trade, a new contract, or endorsement deals. How endorsements could dry up quietly. On paper, REESE is still a marketing goldmine. Young, charismatic, polarizing enough to keep her name in headlines. But brands do not like instability. If you're Nike, Adidas, or Gatorade, you want your athlete visible, accessible, and playing in marquee matchups. When they're out for long stretches, your campaign calendar takes a hit. That's when the calls from corporate start changing from, "let's expand this deal," to "let's wait and see how next season goes before we renew." And in sponsorship land, waiting is often code for moving on to someone else. Impact on trade value league-wide. Even if a team wants to take a gamble on her talent, the math changes now. Her injury history plus the perception issues means the return Chicago could get in a trade is far below what it might have been even 6 months ago. Front offices are going to say, if she's doing this to the Sky, what happens if she's unhappy here? That hesitation drives the price down. You don't give up a foundational piece for someone you're not certain will suit up every night. The risk of being labeled high maintenance. In sports, once that label sticks, it's almost impossible to peel off. Teams start factoring in your maintenance needs when building rosters. Not just physical, but emotional and PR related. It's not always fair, but the WNBA isn't a big enough league for players to have both a high-maintenance label and an inconsistent on-court presence. Only true generational talents can survive that, and even then, they're on thin ice. Missed leadership opportunities. Even if REESE can't play, she's missing a massive chance to establish herself as a vocal leader. Traveling with the team, huddling with players during timeouts, being visible in practice. These are the things that build a leadership resume. Right now, someone else on the sky is filling that void. And when you give up leadership space, it's hard to get it back. The quiet power of optics. Here's what hurts most. Even if everything behind the scenes is perfectly innocent, the optics are brutal. Sports are about perception as much as reality. Seeing REESE absent from the bench while her team gets blown out, that image speaks louder than any injury report. Fans remember images. And right now, the image they're storing is REESE isn't with the team. What happens if the Sky improve without her? This is the nightmare scenario for her brand. The Skies start winning without her in the lineup. Even if it's just a small hot streak, it changes the conversation from "we can't win without her" to "maybe we're better without her." That's how players get written out of a team's future plans. A narrowing window. WNBA careers are short. Even shorter for players who rely on athleticism and physicality. REESE doesn't have a decade to play with in terms of reputation rehab. Every season lost to injury or absence shrinks the window she has to dominate and cash in on her prime. The longer she's out, the more likely it is the league moves on to the next big thing. And there's always a next big thing. Why silence is the worst option. The longer REESE avoids publicly addressing the situation, the harder will be to re-enter the conversation on her own terms. Right now, she could still take control with a strong statement, a clear rehab plan, and visible team support. If she waits until next season to do damage control, the public will have had a year to form its own conclusions, and those conclusions will not be flattering. Bottom line, Angel Reese's situation isn't just about a back injury. It's about timing, optics, and the unforgiving nature of pro sports narratives. If she doesn't actively shape her story, the league, the media, and the fans will shape it for her. And once they do, there's no guarantee she'll like the ending.